아래 당도 들이 쇼게 되대. 저기 개위 자와체발라 바치 가리용 것은 레로세야다. 니래 차베기 차바다. 온도스진에 니수긴 한들야 아니 계절을 좀 발라 바치 지고레스 삼로데 대실려와이나. 디 매바 소야라 나 가르쳐고레스 나도 준주세야 삼당 고레스 준주세야 개위 자와체발라 한 가신 조신 조베 삼바디 아니 배치당 고레스 준주주 고레스제 아니 니베딜라 나 가르쳐버리시 나가서 당아서라 강아 용야다 동아세야디 가르쳐서 원비고 걸 진에 원비기 배치 당진 되네 토네 아니 가르쳐야 동아모 리고레스 되네 자 될야 젬바다 시신店제 아주 셈디 아니 지기 샹리아 아니 가실레 셈 삼로나리아 샹레 뇌비 삼바다 이제 삼바디 마당 가제 아니 그 개유초 삼다야디 젬바다 시신店제네 도스제네 배지지고레스 제자 바위딩고레스 셈 뇨모바 계사다 되니게 유초라 마당와제 아니 셈디바 개유초 성비초려야 다야게 삼당고 젬바다 시신이 된지 디베지 당고래 디베지 당와이나 한가서 지금 호표권이 강아지 용 말해야지 아 탑람로시 되니 제고를 해야지 노스진에 디리쇼게 디고셔로.
Good afternoon. So this morning we looked at two key points. Firstly, that our obstacles that we have to accumulating virtue were identified as drowsiness, mental dullness, and laziness. But even in a more expansive way, the antidote to overcome our inner obstacles to the accumulation of virtue or the accumulation of wholesome minds is to cultivate joyous perseverance, an attitude, a mind that delights in virtue. And then secondly, we spoke about how so many obstacles and problems that we experience come about through our senses, the 5 physical and the 1 mental sense. To prevent our mind going in a non-virtuous direction and to keep our mind virtuous, we need to rely on the 3 mental factors or consciousnesses of conscientiousness, introspection, and mindfulness. And it's through relying on these 3 that we can keep our mind virtuous and ensure that it doesn't become overwhelmed by afflictions. Then turning back to the text, again and again, 3 times, both day and night, examine the flow of your thoughts.
만주기 류유권에 넘기로 두셔야 돼야 당. 나가유권에 균죄지야 당 식습시야 용고래지래. 안에 되네 되노 삼로데 되네 숙체조된 류유권에 안샹래에 너버 샹래 진내야 용고래서. 제가 되네기 류당 아유권에 샹래 너버이나 그런 것은 파쇼 미디를 기부요 말아 강아지고래서. 소소의 기부 용고를 배서는 소소의 기부 용말 소소의 강아지기래서. 파쇼라 강아지여도 파 직습시나 술래 직습시기로와 수습시나 수습기 마기와 자기로와 가그 말와 파 뇌나 술래 뇌기로와 제가 되네에서 라신니가라 강아치고레스 류나기 제가 아주 셈들이야 군노들 셴이 뇌베 삼바도 홍로 삼바지레벤 니기 류나 쮸바디야 야고리고물 두가지리고레 니기 라셰 샬라 뇌고레 라라 뇌고레 제레 제가 난 아주 셈들이야 군노리야 샹라 팬베 삼바 잠바다 제외서 망이 팬바 주기 닝제선 베샹라 팬바다 제외 삼바 개바이나 니기 삼로 디기 꾸네라제 먼저 류가 쮸바데 가르 튕거스네 나이고네 기셰드네 칭년부 야고셰야당 류기 누고네 남겨 동게 넘겨되네 지 개마수소세 개마 넘겨 야고돼야 니 때여도 ene 파제 미디어 셈랴 가라라게야당 안지게 넘겨야고 소래 넘겨야고 된 거래 소소래 거위리 거래 제가 소소 류유고네 안샹리야 로고자디와 잘라 자로 제야다 류유고네 가르 로고체와 제야다 안노 파저 마신바이나 콜레 롭된 제야다 안지 누시는 거 로고제 투고래 제가 셈바 상보디 깨바네 셈바 상보 디기 군인 랑기 류당 나다 이 차상의 돈에 샹라 로고제 투고래 샹라 펜바 두바네 샹디 거우 용고래 콜 디기 용고래 디 gengi ana sosolena amidigi ode yago jiusun chule nomgyo yago doya de geshe yago shya de sosole doya che ba le so ne ne soso gi wu yong go sa nga che digi sam da we ne adu si yong go re che
The primary purpose of training our mind in the Buddha Dharma is the primary practice of the Buddha Dharma is to train our mind, to change our way of thinking, to turn our way of thinking from non-virtue to virtue and to abide with virtue. So if we think of what happens when a non-virtuous mind arises, for example, one of harmful intent, where we have the wish for harm to come to someone else, so immediately with the arisal of that mind, our own mental peace is lost, our own mind is in a state of unhappiness. And to the extent that we express this way that we are feeling, we will bring unhappiness to others. Even if we are trying to control ourselves, but our facial expression portrays how we feel inside, merely that will bring unhappiness to others, let alone what will happen if we express verbally how we feel. We'll speak harshly to others, unkindly to others, and we may even engage in physical conflict with others. And this all starts from a way of thinking being non-virtuous. The results then of non-virtuous minds arising within us, or unwholesome minds arising within us, is that we are unhappy. Moreover, to the extent that we express this unhappiness to others, to the extent that we express the afflictions that are dominating our mind to others, unhappiness will come to them as well. Moreover, when others then become unhappy in dependence on how we are treating them, we know from our own experience they are likely to respond in kind to us, just making the situation worse, compounding our own unhappiness. So therefore, if our mind is non-virtuous or unwholesome, not only will we be unhappy, but we'll spread that unhappiness to others, harming others too. But the contrary is also true. We know from our own experience, when our mind is virtuous, we are happy, our mind is at ease and at peace. And then when we express ourselves to others, we do so in a way that adds to harmony and that eases their difficulties that others may be experiencing. For example, when our mind is happy and at peace, our facial expression is one of being at ease. The way we speak to others will be gentle, as will our behavior. Moreover, when we are in a good place, when our mind is happy, we'll readily help others. We'll be of benefit to others where we can, utilize our skills to help others. And we'll do so with a joyous mind, not with a sense of obligation. So therefore, someone who's trained their mind well, and their mind tends to be virtuous or wholesome, they will have been known in their social circle as a beneficial member of that group, someone that people want to be around, will seek out. Someone, though, whose mind readily goes towards non-virtue or is inclined to being unwholesome, in their social circle, people will know to be careful when around them. So this all comes from a way of thinking. And therefore, the primary objective in the Buddha Dharma is to transform our minds, transform our way of thinking.
여바이나 니기 겐제 니기 델라테네 안데 류하기 쮸바 샬라 네비기 쮸바들이 거래 다 류하서 나무 삼로야 샬레 펜베 삼바데 젬베 삼로 덴시여바이나 니기 겐제 류하기 쮸바디 샬레 펜바지 온 거래 지난 디네상 르가 그 쩌바 샤는 녀바 용야다 펜바 용야디 내가 제레 맞아 낭 삼로를 라릭도와 제사 낭 베네가 동게 나고로 동 나고 규모 찍대야디 나 삼로 나라야 파쇼라 마가와다 디네 삼로 레서나 동디에 나고 돼야 나 직수볼 때 차고로 와 동에 넘겨 차야 돼 제사 삼로 상보대 바 펜베서 바 잠세 삼레도 동기 당디야 돼서 가랑라로 신나야가 통고로 와 제사 류가 그 쩌바 야도 레야디 낭 삼로 공원 야도를 리고 키고래. 제가 셈세드 빼 맞아 셈 교와다데. 제가 공원 야고 집은 야고 수요고 나가주 낭로가 셈 냠바 챤는데 삼바데 매바수. 낭셈 안챤네 판별 삼로데 가주 디하네 야도 베시 땅고 그래 진짜 인생 군도 야다양 뒤 인생 뒤숨 야다양 랑 셈기 귤라 따버자 세디 제가 니메고레 나라 체나고레 나라 소식에 삼로 나래야 삼로 가네시 코우도 삼로 전에 네베 삼바다 삼로 독자지 코우도에 삼로 야가지 코우도 삼다 삼로 두아로 저 네베 삼바다 견주해야 돼 되니게 삼로 코우에는 파 삼로 디파가 오래 파가 삼마다 되니 전에 펜베 삼바다 잠지게 삼라다 되니게 야고제에게 삼로 코우에는 니가 저기 야고래 그래서 삼로 야도 니디 하파직 세나고나다 니메고나다 야네 야도 삼당 가르가 용도 대시 쇼베시바 잠바다 시진이래 대두스네 제시진이 제바 삼다제 아니 야가도 용바이나 가져냐 셈네 야 베제다데 바냐 또 누가 중고에는 어디디 야고 요말했음 바 삼로 끼모 주시 어두스네 가고 그래서 그래
Thinking about what I've just presented then, and relating that to our own lived experience, we recognize that when we are unhappy, we take this out on others, we bring unhappiness into their lives. Or, on the other hand, when we are in a good place, in a good mental space, and we express that to others, we help bring happiness to their lives. Or if they are having a bad time themselves, at the very least, we will not add to it, but we may help ease their own difficulties that they are experiencing at the time. So that's the impact it has on others and on ourselves. Of course, if our mind is in a happy place, if it's virtuous, our mind is at ease and at peace, and we are joyous too. And thereby, we have the mental space to fulfill our capacity to be of benefit to others. So the key point to make here is that the way we physically interact with others and the way that we verbally speak to others, our communication, is dependent on our mental state. If our mental state is untroubled, undisturbed, at ease, this will be evident in the way we interact with others. And conversely, if we are agitated, frustrated, tense and uptight, this will be evident in how we communicate and interact with others too. So this points to the great importance of taking care of our own minds. So here we look at in particular the mental state that we'd call our motivation, our intention, and to ensure that at all times it's virtuous and wholesome. Our intention or our motivation in the sense of our motivation that leads to how we interact with others, how we speak to and physically interact with others. This intention, to ensure at all times we keep it virtuous and wholesome. And this then leads us to these two lines. Again and again, 3 times both day and night, examine the flow of your thoughts. So here, with these mental factors, these consciousnesses that we mentioned earlier, use mindfulness, introspection, and conscientiousness to at all times, throughout the day and night, to be aware of your mental process, your mental flow, your flow of thoughts, and ensure that it's in the direction of virtue. And should you notice, or when you notice it's in the direction of non-virtue, to bring it back to virtue. If you notice, for example, that you're mentally complaining about someone or an event, rather turn your mind to virtue. Turn your way away from complaining about others and rather generate thoughts of love and kindness towards others. keep your mind virtuous, and thereby your interactions with others will be virtuous too.
Dine 장은 남바 상계비게 가르송고라스네 간지진 근데 뒤지 용어보 간지는 규단 깨라 되네 용고를 세단 규단 깨라 매바 용고 말레스 디나시 디 인자 먼저 류가게 쩌방 안 발리바디 규단 깨라 되리고 그래서 류가게 쩌방 안 발리 규가를 되리고서는 낭삼로 니샤네 네베 삼바도 주비 삼로 실레도 될레트네 리고레스 그래서 류가게 쩌바 상보냐 규단 깨라 되리고 디 규디 가르서 낭로 삼로라 semba sangpo che semba sangpo de shen le chamje samlo ne di tin ko che san gyu de ken le tin le ko che san tin ne za gyu di kanesh nanglo samlo gyu di kane ko du pa che ba che de che san che ba che sam da de ge chen bo le che ko da tin ne za ya ko nanglo samlo de ya ko ko na di dong ne nam gyu de lu nga che ba de ya ko jung ko de che san shan la me ne ba rang la ya phen ba shen la phen ba chung ko de da nanglo samlo le je samlo de shen la ne be sam ko ngo ya ko ne 류가 줘봐도 샬라 뇌바 지디 대보들라 류가 줘봐도 리고 류가 줘봐 샬라 뇌바 된디기 kinja rala 뇌바 라신이가 뇌바 네 도스틴 동아 용야데 데네 쉬운거래 제가 디네자 류가기 줘베 넘규 토네 네 동아 용야데 랑 샬라야 강아티야 동아다 디기 kinja rala 동아 용야기 규디 나셈레 데네 용거래 제가 셈 간바디 파가고레스 데지 셈 송고레 매바서 고레스 제사다 라셴니가 라 펜비 류가게 줘봐디 류가 줘봐 약보디게 라래 펜고래 샬래 펜고래 제사 라셴니가 디기 용야 규디 류가 줘봐디 레기 규디 가르서 나가 셈라 상보들리고 제사 셈바 상보대가 저기 냐고래 약보디다 베셔다 인자딩아 저래 냐고래 스타고래 소래
A foundational teaching from Buddha Shakyamuni was that of karma, of cause and effect. Results come about independent on causes. So for example, our physical behavior, our verbal communication, these are results. They came from causes. The causes are our way of thinking. So independent on our way of thinking, we'll act in a way that's virtuous, a way that's wholesome, or a way that's unwholesome. To the extent that we recognize this, we'll know that we have to take care of our mind. We have to take care of our mind. To spiritually develop, we need to take care of our own minds. To fulfill our capacity as human beings, we need to take care of our mind. So all that how we interact with others, as well as all that we experience, is filtered through our mental experience. If we're going to interact with others in a way that's beneficial and wholesome, or a way that adds to conflict and is unwholesome, this will come about in dependence on our way of thinking. Likewise, when others engage with us, or whether others as in people or as in situations, the way we experience them is dependent on our way of thinking. If our way of thinking is naturally inclined to non-virtual or unwholesome way of thinking, in other words, an afflicted way of thinking, we will take certain situations, we'll easily take them in a harmful manner, in a manner that leads us to getting upset and agitated. If our way of thinking, if our personality is quite different, that same situation we can take in a very different way. Our mind can stay undisturbed. We won't experience it as harmful. So therefore, even when we are in situations that some would find trying or challenging, if one's mind is developed and one keeps one's mind virtuous and wholesome, those situations will not lead to one becoming agitated, disturbed, or upset. And rather, with a mind that's calm and relaxed and spacious, one can be of benefit in such circumstances. So therefore, through training, how we experience the world, how we deal with situations, this is within our own hands. We have the responsibility to take care of our minds. We also have the capacity to do so.
Dine za benang ang zuge kiji kiwe ne ki semchen kiji ki ang zulya be ap je ang zul ju so ja ga yong de ji kiji ang zul ton ma ga ji ki di ap de ang zul so ja yong go ban The kiddy was so to give out dance and also so jolly to quit no mutination and to so jolly go. They do some davena, the Indian number so jolly, the carriers and the course some nalia, Mazu Magavi, number Chicolia, Coranazo, Corosat, you can see some of the over. That is some of the change in the Koyani, Aviata, so jolly, Lunga, Chopang, and Badiler. That never had a show or a labna. Kidilia, Nanzu, Benga, so jolly, the corner, Cola, and Yedun dance, Chichevena, Negatiloco, Lamsa, Yantic, shoes, hopping, and yet with the cook, Dusma, Jamagi, Yore, Ina, Jelly, Anja, Codici, or Bed Cormella, so too mare. And I'm going to pass you, Colia, Swag in Ayore. On did. Then to give Diggers and how to get some knowledge, Colonel, some or so jolly to Kong it some big Colia, never chickens, Yedutang in some Kulong and Bachilevanza, Manzu Lunga with Lugi Chubati Cola and Yedutangor. Digi, Copacho the Cora Chief, shook chair Doyamato, Manzu, my cold never so to warmer. Then Anzu, quite number never said, cook, you control never so water. Di mewa kada se gore labna dang an ju ge ya de ne le du ya ko le jamba sam de yin je sam bi ge jam je sam ko khon lang go da khon la ji nga la ma ga wa che ni ko ya ma ge sam lo yu ba za nga le ya di so ja ga li go de yin je sam je ko le ya pha jam je je an ko le ya ji sa ya ru yin bo re ji te be ne ndu che de jam je che ben on ge li ko ma ye du go re ye ne an ko ngang ji yin ba de ko ju de ne ko hu gu de ge yu che an nga zo le ko hu cha an je ma de wa ne Lord Nisum jail, a kitty two somena, bear go watching Hansulia Tam and Chow go jaguar. Jeza, Maga, some of the Nanzuga, some of Magawati, maybe so to go mare. Jeza Maga, some of the canis mells was and Delia Jamzi, some tab and the Jamzi, Pachuga Maga, somebody never so to go. Jeza Jamzi, sometimes Denigi Maga so to get some of the so drop the temple shoe chaware. Negap to answer one shoot, Tanji collectors, Jig two girl, Timbu, Negap Telige, Lamsan, Jacob, Koyan Junjirua, Abgurua. Says that dinner and the killing that dinner. Me Nadagare, Sosa Midi, Sosa Maga change Yoben, Pali and Magawa Cheven, Durdura Modernica Chambucha, Mare. The Hanjik Soso Wangji Beji Taji, Negap to Colea, Jikoma, Nim to win air. Nazo watching me by Chata, Soso Colia, Go Yakuradi, and the Neki Yungre, just not drop out Timbu Chato Hamare. Just not Denise and Hansipa Jambuche, Jamze, Combuche, and Persho di Conre Shi, Soso Maga Samba Shi, and Soso Gavucha, T. Gavucha did Timbu Dugo, Takadine, Lomang, where all that in Midi Yakoye, some Midi Shi Soban, or the Midi Yakoyeta, and draw shoe inside the some Nala Gabuli gore. Just like Denise and the Jamzig, some piety, that Rashi Nigale Pampa, near up till a Pampa. Then you gave you some tidy, Jamze, some Gobana, Sanjo Govan to Balea, Tanya to work, and you send by China as a Tanya to work. You watch Malhada Muko want to be Gusa to work. She's a Denise, she's a Sanyi Jumnindi and Koron Yamyo Tony Disubare, she's that the Georgie Korongi Yamyonji Yamninja, Sanyi Jumnendi Yusun Shabadi, Korongi. Bejeta, Yamninje, Koron Yamyosa, Tin Yamyon Tone, Tangazo Yaudus in the Jun did that, the nation and then did Shangazo Yamninje, what Diche Hutusen, and Disungor, wada.
Take another situation that one may well have experience of. If you think of perhaps on a route that one has to walk, there's a dog that's very aggressive. And each time you have to walk past that home, the dog comes out charging to the fence with great aggression. And from one side, one's a bit relieved to be on the other side of the fence, because you know if you were in their territory, you would be in danger. So it's very clear that dog wants to bite us. So here we have a choice in how we can respond. Probably what will happen with us is immediately fear will arise within us. And naturally, when fear arises within us, we may respond in an aggressive manner. And if we were to do so, from the dog side, there are one or two responses. Their aggression may grow, or they may cower down, becoming fearful. But what's certain is that when we come that way again, That dog would not look at us with a friendly attitude, but would almost certainly be aggressive towards us again. And in fact, should we respond in an aggressive manner to that dog, there's actually no difference between us and that dog in that we are acting in an aggressive manner, as is the dog. Why? Our mind is aggressive, as is the dog's. So trying to be more spiritually evolved than the dog, we should take care of our mind, utilizing introspection, mindfulness, conscientiousness. Be aware that an appropriate response is not an afflicted one of anger, but rather generate loving kindness towards the dog. And this can be done not because one appreciates the way it's attacking us, but recognizing that being before us now is suffering. And the reason we know they're suffering is because their behavior is aggressive, which means the motivating mind is aggressive. And we know from ourselves, when our mind is angry or aggressive, we are not at peace, we are not happy, we are suffering. So therefore we can impute that the dog is suffering too. Realizing the dog is suffering, loving kindness, compassion for the dog will arise within us. And then, especially if we know we have to walk this route frequently, the next time we can prepare. We can bring some treats with us. When the dog charges at us aggressively, we can throw some treats to it. And after doing this a couple of times, we know what will happen. The dog's attitude will change. They'll no longer see us as a threat, but as a friend. They'll approach us with their tail wagging and with expectation on having a treat thrown towards them. So what we see here in this illustration is that through utilizing these mental factors of conscientiousness and introspection and mindfulness, we can take responsibility for our own way of thinking. And even in a situation where perhaps our natural response would be either fear or aggression, we take control of our mind, respond in a skillful way, understanding that this being is suffering, and respond in an appropriate manner. And in this way, our mind stays at ease and peaceful and happy, and we also have a beneficial impact on the other being. And over time, what would have been a nasty, aggressive relationship will transform into a friendship. And this is an illustration that we can easily understand and apply elsewhere. And this illustration is entirely in accordance with what's taught here, which is what Lama Atisha has taught and before Buddha Shakyamuni taught. And this was taught from their own experience too. So based on knowledge, reflecting on that knowledge, and then engaging in activity based on that knowledge, experience is gained. And this is how the being that became Buddhist Shakyamuni spiritually progressed, as did Lama Atisha. And these are techniques that are within our grasp, that are within our ability to utilize to transform our own way of thinking.
Gangi Tone, Pendo Trubne, Jig Sambe Samlodi, Monzodi, Yana Yando Tang Tire. Zan Chen, Sidu, Ni, Ma, Ni Kuroche, Sena, Ma, Nidu Gabline, Dangas Nidugola, take some of the Neola, Midi, New York, just on a deal, Jama, go up to the Nedi, Medi Shigin Sambe Samlot, Jungua, Dene Matawache, and Manazuki, Sama Nidu Chidi, Niru Chidina, Samlodelia, Shana Nube Chawas, in Chigme, Sambe Samlochida. Shell Pembe Java the Kantu to Chicken, Sembe Samlodi, Dusene, Diada, and in other sugar, you say to the Lamsa, you see the Cablineda, and the Jigge, Senago in the Shell Sugar, and you say to Niseven, or Shall Nube Java says out in the Chigio Marta, Sembigia, Jambat Jaya. I shall Pembe Java the Kantu to Chegore, Sembige, Jade, Dusene, some Dangures or down to them.
The way we can utilize what's presented here on the third line, 3 times both day and night, is that we need to take care of our mind at all times. So from the outset of the day, right in the first moment we wake up, we're still in bed and we're trying to gather our thoughts, immediately set the intention, whomever I meet today, I won't harm them. In fact, I would rather ensure that I have a loving and compassionate attitude towards them, and where I can be of benefit, I will be so. So we set this as an intention right at the outset of the day. And during the day we can remind ourselves. And as we progress through the day, and certainly at the end, in the evening, when we recall the day's events, look back and see where we did interact with others in a loving and compassionate way, and where we look back when we interacted with others in a way that was not so loving and compassionate. And again, establish our intention. From tomorrow or later on over the course of the day, I will ensure that I will only relate to others in a loving and compassionate way. I will not interact with others in a harmful or aggressive manner at all. Just cultivate this intention first thing in the morning, remind ourselves of it throughout the day, and certainly recall the day's events in the evening, strengthening this way of thinking evermore. Then the next two lines, reveal your own shortcomings, but do not seek out others' errors.
지상 다게 녀바 자샤 신세디다 소소라는 노트 제바이나 소소라게 노트 중심 노트 제바도 소소라 켈린제다 안 셴레네 셴레 뇌베게 노트 중하다게 노트 제샤 교안에 지게 조마라사 공타 쉬야다 디네기 제고르세로 지상 하나줄의 교연 가르용 거스네 소소레 녀바 노트 주바이나 노트디 소소게 케밀레 바치 안직 셴레 an hawane yawo mara samde digi beada an chigi di chen soso ge nyeba di kabya ge donda la shen ko hor ta ya an shen ya ne gen che no to mango shi li go wa chisan di soso rang ge deni ge yone soso rang le ka shen le ka ra shi ni ga la ka ngo chisan soso ge no to nyeba choba soso ge sam da da ding no no sha di zao ge ne jeman zao ge ne ji me da san be ge sam lo na ya jeman di ring da no sha pe sa sha jeman zao ge ji me san be samdaya 아니 지게 양 현대 미질 리비 자진 어딘이 노아샤케네 고다 사실라웨나 고 소소랑게 녀바디 소소게 몰렌제네 소소게 녀 노트임바드 하고바이나 하고바죠 소소 몰렌제바이나 아니 요다 총알이고로와 안 멍오바나 어다딘시네 야부민데 지금에 선배 삼당오레서 나게 녀바 자자 신사디
Looking at the first line, reveal your own shortcomings. This line is about being honest with yourself and how you interact with others. So if others point out an error an error that you have done, or correct you in some way, if what they've said is correct, don't refuse and say no, you've misunderstood. Accept one's faults. Apologize for errors that one has made. So in other words, if you're accused of something and that is correct, you have made that fault, put your hands up and apologize. And together with that apology, make the commitment to try and change oneself, to try and alter this perhaps habit pattern that one has that is harmful. And in this way, our spiritual development is aided. On the other hand, if one rather has the habit to hide one's errors, to not acknowledge faults and to try and deflect errors that one has made, this impedes spiritual growth, because you're trying to present yourself in a way that's not in accordance with reality. So here we're encouraged to apologize when faults are made, and in particular, to utilize this as an opportunity to commit to transforming ourselves ever further. And this helps us to reduce our bad habits.
Jisada Nodru Imbadi, Nodru Imahako Wachikores, Nodru Mahako Nedin, Mahobad, the Nodru Mashoya, Dandala, Sosuki Subsubchi Hores Murad, Dinha Jesa, Deji, Shevana, Shinga, the Kululia, Namba, Chen Nube, Sampajlena, and Dela Denen, Gyundin, Jingi, Gyun Redua, Nishal Nube, Samlo Koreadi, Ni never Gyun Resha, Jesa Digi, Dela Dene, and Lunga, Chubanum, Namba Teddy, never shall a Nugudua, the never shas. This is Mahomban Zawakini, that the Yama Jesan Sawade, that Mahomban Dinigi Mayoga, Tablam Bezu Chiki, some Dade, and do those that never said in Chagurua, near Dagi Yaba, Draja Shinside. Downboard Dagi Yaba Draja Shinside.
So, what this points to is that if we don't recognize our own faults, how can we change? And if someone points out our faults, we may be aware of it, we may not. We may not be aware of how obvious it is to others rather than ourselves. So therefore, if a fault is pointed out to us and it's valid, we should recognize this, apologize, and with that comes an obligation to change. Because we want to spiritually develop, we want to overcome our faults, we want to transform into the person that we have the ability to be. And when reflecting back on our own behavior, and where we recognize faults, we should recognize these faults, make the commitment then secondly, not to repeat them as best we can, and then let it go. Not hold on to things that have been done, things that we have done, or things that we have said. Recognize the fault, commit to changing in the future, and let it go. What's done is done. The future lies before us, and now, through taking care and control of our own mind, in the future we can limit repeating past harmful behavior.
先有出我在米家是对，先有拿出的，没现在有捐的怕这一些的怕，就搞得多或者捐搞得多有就怕捐的那捐多啊，真的是先有捐家呀怕这一些，俺现在也捐就家呀就。我的拿出现在捐去一定的程度是别个你习惯嘛的是我的，其实他这里啊，像国外忙到了去我，这里啊，先有捐怕这一些痛呢，这里啊判断的先有。捐让给奥的客人的捐钱，都客人都对的用度啊，这边个后来这件，老板呢，后来判断个开零钱，但开零几个月把它判断用个月呢，我说奥的客人拿出月呢，客人拿的第几个马来大是呢，啊，写出过了吧？开零上马来上边用到哪啥什么呢？对可现呢，可能俺就判断是该嘛了，就是的那个经历，但有所说个怕所说个本家肉的不肉的，所说个这个找不你问，所以可能会拿出捐就要不说是通过一般呢。考虑现在判断当可以年赛的上班呢，可捐上去了，按照那捐用度大是呢，第那那几个人，第明白这刚做呢，考虑拍出了马卡就捐家真，考虑捐呢，我得考虑捐对的，弟拿出弟这都是办，马些弟这边呢，考虑怕可通穷大家当，可民教出来个段到了，先去捐的去怕这些，讲弟那上大叫马来，第一回马来去了。
But do not seek out others' errors. So here we should guard against our mind going in the direction of being dominated by the faults that we perceive in others, especially where we ruminate about this a lot, about the faults of a particular person, that they're always like this or they're doing that, etc. We should guard against that. Moreover, though, there are times when it is beneficial to directly point out a fault that someone else has done or perhaps repeatedly does. However, here we need to use our wisdom. If this person is open to constructive advice from us, then we should share it with them. Especially if it's, say, someone you have responsibility for, such as young children, or if it's someone that you are close to, such as particular family members or friends, then it's good to an appropriate manner to point out a fault that is made. But going alongside this, where a person won't be open or receptive to what one has to say, stay silent. Don't say anything. Even though one is well-intentioned, because your intent will not be achieved, stay silent. And not only stay silent, ensure mentally you are not ruminating about the faults in others, thinking about it again and again.
Bendigo 파마즈기 부부의 견통에 결혼 견진이 진지도 아닌 지교 말다서 부부의 견견 결혼기 계시라 밀려야 되니까 넘겨지니 뛰기도 결혼 근데 저기 레갈레다 되니 견 너도 자기도 쓴 밤이 파 부부의 시에디 부부들 마가와치 코 명시해줘야 당코 강한 영화에 돈달에 시교 말봐 밤에기 부부를 잠재 삼당 코 야고차 삼비고 콜이야 야고주연아 삼당제 잠재게 삼당제는 부부들의 결혼되는 노조를 다 지기요마다 세대 결혼되는 노조 지기도 와서 견시해야지 견주 되는 그 호시바이나 부부들이 견가를 지금은 삼당 안 받되는 요마도 되는 견지 노조 지기요마다 세대 밤에기 군로라 가르스는 부부들의 잠재자 콜 야고 미야고차나 코 야고차 코 강한 마테나 삼다지 잠재트는 시고라 니 디고라다 나야 먼저 교인시에 찍려 디 콜레 강주는 디 콜레 교주시나 코 통충 차로 그래 코 레간의 비로 그래 콜레 강아제 고래서 비 군노 되니 계제 콜레 교주시나 니 디고 말해셔다 먼저 디고 말해서 딘 지고 말해서 당한저 지소나야 양지 슝 레자 바다 가시게 빼지 샹리아 자왕 다야의 노출제 지 고소리서 제 저방한 바 차이베나 델야 안저 군지 제디 가서 군노들야 콜레베 독자 삼마나제 고 데니 군지시네 인제 코론 아주기 노출 침부지고 디게 샹리아 강한 망부지고 제사 지소나야 답시 망부 강한 망부지기도 제사 디네자 디기민도 삼베기디 콜레야 군지시 디군디 템바 셰바이나 코파 안지게 코론레 마오바나 마셰야기 돈달레 핑기레스 안에 코 군디 디네 마오바나 마셰바이나 안에 샹라야 강한 마테벨 핑기레 삼제 라신 차상레 펜베서비 군네라제 안에 결혼기 쥐바디네 시기도와 안 결혼하디네 진에 야고 민도세베 군주시나 아주 시초월 다가제레 파기 군상 군제디 군노라야 빼가 콜로네베 삼바 콜로 독자 삼다 디네 지교 말 군대교 말에서 오늘 신 유튜브 다메샤스 잘메샤스데
In the situation of a parent and a child, a parent is required to guide their child in terms of what is an appropriate way to act in various circumstances, what is an appropriate way to speak in various circumstances. So a parent has this responsibility because a child just does not know. So here, a parent generally will be guided by wanting the very best for their child and therefore will seek to correct behavior as well as praise behavior where appropriate. And what's important here is the motivation of the parent. When especially in the circumstance of correcting behavior, the parent needs to do so with an attitude of loving kindness. And if the motivation of the parent is one of loving kindness, in the sense that the attitude that is manifest is one of loving kindness, the child is likely to pick up on this and therefore is much more likely to be receptive to the guidance from their parents. And with the parents having a mind dominated by love and kindness, they will speak to the child in a skillful manner, in a gentle manner, and pointing out the benefits of a particular type of behavior and the faults of a contrary type of behavior. And the child then is much more likely to be receptive to what is said. Then in other circumstances, in society, for example, where it's something that one is observing at a distance, such as through the news, or more explicitly or more directly, here, where one sees behavior or speech that is inappropriate, one's first responsibility is to take care of one's own mind, to make sure that afflictions aren't dominating one's own mind. that oneself is not getting angry, not wanting to respond in a harmful manner, not looking down on the other person, wanting hardship to come to the other person as retribution for what they are doing or have done. That's one's first responsibility. And there, where one has a possibility to directly speak to the person, and where they'd be receptive to one, or where one has a level of responsibility, then one should interact with them, but not with a motivation that is harsh, but with a wish to be of benefit to them. So here, the responsibility again is to ensure that one's mind is not afflicted. And where the situation is where the person is acting in a harmful manner, but one has no interaction with them, so something you observe, say in the news, then take care of your mind. One may quite rightly say their behavior is wrong and is inappropriate, but don't guard your mind against being afflicted, wanting harm to come to them, looking down on them, wanting punishment and pain and suffering to be experienced by them. Rather, understand that they are deluded and therefore they are acting in a harmful way. And moreover, they are creating the causes that will lead to their further suffering in the future. So here, one is still rightly recognizing that their behavior is inappropriate and should not be accepted. But one's mind, though, is not harsh and aggressive, but rather calm, spacious, and loving towards the person. Then the next two lines. Conceal your own good qualities, but proclaim those of others.
아니 결혼 나래 껴와래 셈비기 통충 자로 거래. 그래서 되는 인자 이제 나게 기교 말해지래. 다 신유인데 바자서 지금 신기 유의 독도 진디 지교 말해서 이제 나게 기기래서 나게 기는데 지교 말해라래. 다 이네 연대 차상의 배고래별한테 배고야말 소소기 예마 콜레시에 안 소소기 연대 강신바디 콜리아 랍제 콜리아 판도 여바지 난 코에기 제소 장야당 안델이야 판도 줘봐 있나 소소 말라고 거봐 랍고 콜리아 람된지 디치네 약고에서 발람되지 소소기 신배 연대디 현래 랍제 판도 시고 거래 맞아 인지미지 차상의 배샤여 쓴거 말해 다그 연대 배고래서디 나야지네 지교 말해지 나야제제 샬랴 안징 말 연대 신구요 시구에서디 디지교 말해서 인디 나야기 지교 말디 나야기 연구래서 저자데니 미네 아니 견제 몽골이 다고 신구에 더가 시우지도 고 모빈시기서 고호 땅에서서 비게 데니 견제 몽골디니 라신이갈이야 판모도 간지래서 저자 데니게 랑게 연대 배제신사디 근데 랑게 지신구에도 근데 랍네네 피 켈리 맞아봐나 랍나 판도세요 말아와 지선 데네라 지교 말해서 지선 피 케 멜렌 바다 지소나랴 나게 온도 진의 소소 연대 바 땡겨 말파 연대데 바 니네 맞아봐지 지배고래서 단 판도 여바다 데델랴 오늘 그 냠nen지가 판도 여바는 소소의 연대 신교도 홀라고 그러와데 마다 바자스 배고래서 차상랴 배고래서 기시 말에 다리한테 주야이냐가 여러분
Conceal your own good qualities. The meaning of this line is that one should take great care against the arisal of pride. Because it's very easy, if we see that we have if we believe we have a particular quality, that pride can arise, and that pride will exaggerate the extent of this good quality that we perceive in ourselves, and from that many faults follow. For example, we'll look down on others, we'll criticize others, we'll see them as lesser than they are. And this is harmful to ourselves and certainly to our relationships with others. And moreover, should one become prone to pride, there is a great likelihood that one will pretend to be skilled in areas that one is not, or pretend to be more skilled than one actually is. This is again in the direction of dishonesty, so we need to guard against this. However, one shouldn't go to an extreme, because just reading literally this line, conceal your own good qualities, does not mean one should hide in all circumstances one's qualities. Always utilize your wisdom. If there's something you know, and the expression of the skill of yours is beneficial, then do so. So if one has particular quality or knowledge, and sharing it with someone will be of benefit to them, do so. But within the context of using one's wisdom, be aware of one's relationship with that person. Will they be open and receptive to what one has to say? And if so, share one's knowledge, help them. If not, then no need. There's no point, in fact. So then, don't do so. So that's the second meaning here, is that it doesn't mean hide all good qualities. Use your good qualities, show your good qualities, share your good qualities when you can be of benefit and the other person is receptive. And if one is using these criteria, is the other person receptive, is it beneficial, this will help prevent one from showing off. And because showing off again goes in the direction of pride. And here, the other meaning, the first one that was mentioned of this line, is to be aware of pride. It's an affliction that presents grave danger. We need to be honest with ourselves and act in accordance with reality, or view ourselves in accordance with reality.
Jisan dagi yunde bajasin da rangi dagi sosu yunde la da yunde ne dhamara yungure ine da dina da de shye de zo di ngan ju ki gewi gejo ju ge nyamlen gi yunde de ki sigoro gejo gi yunde de zo ko gore ne ma ju ge da ji ge nang be ge ju nge kom ja gi yesa da kom sing gi yesa chue de sing gi 결혼을 바 시긴 세네 미니 시에 들려 chue de ba me ba dang nang be chue ke meleng che ba ina an mi de le she ba na de no 파줄이 뇌마도 파내야 말에 낭바시네 소설에 되어 명해지네 아니 시나 그거 말이잖아 되네 곧 시엘이야 뒤수다 다다다 뒤수대 다다 차기도 렘보치 삼다마도 되네게 소설 신규에 자산 신규에도 마시에시나 디 판도 유메 대유리에 되는 시교 말해서 되다 연내서做的 제대로 아주 낭비 취게 냠랭기 연된디게做고거다 되라.
The way I've just described this line then is in a general sense, but the particular sense here would be that relating to our good qualities in terms of the Dharma, both knowledge as well as our experience based on that knowledge. So here we need to take great care to exaggerate our knowledge and our experience of that knowledge, or and thereby maybe show off or look down on others in this regard. So, for example, talking about one's experience of a particular type of meditation or knowledge of a particular topic within the Dharma. Here we need to take care. It is certainly good to share our knowledge and share our experience with others, but we need to take care. Take care that we are showing off. Take care if we are looking down on others. Take care if we are exaggerating our own good qualities. We need to take into account the time, the place, the individual before us. We may well have particular knowledge or a particular experience based on that knowledge, and it may be useful for that person, but we need to take into account whether now is the appropriate time, is the appropriate place, is this an appropriate person? Are they going to be receptive and so forth? And then we can share it or perhaps not.
但先有人点找不着家，所以他先让来先念不能接看的，确念不能接看的那个人点这个怕这个人点什么我工作给他先的变得讲这念不能接看，讲你这念不能讲他的那个念不能làm念不能接看的个了，工作人点这个他工作的那几个没什么 곰 되네 제도와 되네 지금 퇴바 되네 지고래 아니 곰 되네 제고래 그런 소리 또 보이는데 이 빼면서 약올에다 선배기 제수 일하지야다 건축이 연된 삼게 위 계절 냠는 집이 연된 되게 삼다지 제수 일하지 안 되나 안 됐어요 결혼 속에 되네 게 빼 약올했으면 되나 봐 해야다 안 지게 도시네 bên sang yu chấm de papa chen cái George la so ba da de ki ya ha ban de ju de che ren ba la so de ne khon su lama da shen yu yen den de ki du su nyam ne che ba ya ne ya do sam ta de su khon be ya wo che sha sem bi chi su yi ra che de ne rang yi ne khon zui na xin nyam ne che ba de ki che tu ba chi gi san be ge ya zhen ju du ba che ma ba che ya da de ne zhao ba sia de ya tuyang a ge cik xie tuyang ba da de ne ki che an rang ji yang lo ma 랑리야 지게 시에나 판도 유견지라 아니 어두스 시네 유견데 데네 요 콘조 냠는 데네 나와래 먼저 냠는 데네 지고래서 콘조기 냠는 데기 콘조마 도시 데네 시에나 나가 주 있는 디 지고래서 게 구마셔야 돼 유견데 잡아 자서 디스모래
Conceal your own good qualities, but proclaim those of others. As it states here, talk about the good qualities of others. And again, the context is primarily relating to the Dharma, but we can also understand it in a general sense. But where others have particular good qualities, such as there may be a kind person or a loving person, or have good knowledge of a particular topic of the Dharma, then to others we should talk about this, praise their good qualities, and to ourselves we should rejoice in their good qualities, rejoice that this person has over years or over lifetimes developed these good qualities within themselves. Then also in terms of the great beings of the past, such as Buddha Shakyamuni, Lama Atisha, and the Pandits, the 17 Pandits of Nalanda, we can reflect on their unsurpassable qualities, rejoice in all that they have achieved for the sake of others, and thereby generate a determination to ourselves strive to become beings of great benefit in the world just like they are. So in brief, in this line means that we should look for the qualities in others, and we should rejoice in their good qualities, praise the good qualities of others, and moreover, where we see good qualities in others, not only rejoice and praise, but we should set the determination, that aspect that this individual has developed so well, I commit to strive to develop that same aspect, that same good quality within myself.
Dene zana mongba sosurangi da jige yang jing jebe nga ja da dene gi jikte ge samda je sosu tamnya da yang samda o dang dene ji chamde win dene ji jebe de win sa ji ji xie mo di xie mo wa che yang xian liya an jige sosu gi 거분예보 다 혼줄이야 지 혼줄이 소수게다 데네 참도 소소리 디기가 되숑고 소수게 로알이야 아니 지 기회 삼라 가르 디 냠용어 토네 어디제네 야고두세 소수게다 판도설에 콜시나 판도 용설에 선비기 예바이나 양 데네트나 어다 데네징에 데네트네 제비인다 베야고도 한 총어서 데네 지교래 제네 야고열에 세디 먼저 시야기 다 뒤아직 연된 마시 초고로와 지고로 아디나지 안디나 시에다 현지인들 잡아서 세든 먼저다 소소라인 당한주님도 데네데네 제가 망고라 콘스베 하고 제선다 콘스베 고갑이야 볼래 안지 야고 제비인세 소소게 로봇이기 연된디게 막 두스 셰베나 아니지 콘스베 하고 제선 지수 이라요서 랑이 연된지 냠내제 다딩한주 로봇이 막 보다 차상게 오늘안에 상계 좀 된데다 조절이야 대바 지주듯이 삼로 상보다에다 베주지 빼야고려 선비기 지수 이라제 제야다 안 지간주게 달라마다 대시 셰바나지 디인데인 소수게 냠도 제겐디게래 지수 이라제 안 데니기 제야다 가인 두스제데 맞은 냠도 빼야고려스면 랑게 될래 지수 이라제 온 두스제네 아니 샬레나 소수게 판도에 USR Samsala, and then to sing as robot in the consumer, which you continue said, and Yamlin Chetaki Jimba Shebena, they are Shen Yuen Trapaja said, Manju Lalan at Chagoro.
So the advice that's given here, we can certainly, we can certainly apply in many such situations. So we all gather together here for a meditation retreat. I'm sure many of you have done several before. But what would certainly not be the desired outcome would be if one were to feel a sense of pride about all one's past achievements and the many retreats one has done, or to leave here and brag to others about what we did over the Easter break. That would be really strange to show off about engaging in what is supposed to be a period of spiritual development. It would be really strange if the outcome of an event such as this is to look down on others. So after this retreat, if you want to share if it's beneficial to share one's experiences here with others, then it's good to do so. What's often, though, far better is to praise what others achieved. It's talking to, like the people that you're interacting with, to praise their good qualities rather than one's own, unless there's a specific purpose that it appears to be beneficial. Guard against looking down on others. Guard against seeing oneself as better than others. Rather focus on rejoicing in the good qualities of others. And certainly here, and then moreover, in one's own meditation practice, recall the qualities of all the holy beings that have lived in the world and those who are living in the world now, from Buddha Shakyamuni right up to one's present Lama. Rejoice in all their good qualities that they have cultivated over so many lifetimes for the benefit of others, and use that virtuous mind of rejoicing in their qualities to commit to striving to practice just like they have done. And then similarly, with ordinary people around you, whether each other here in our retreat, those in your social group or your place of work, all have good qualities. Remind yourself of their qualities and commit to striving to develop those same good qualities within yourself too. Recognize others for their good qualities, rejoice in them, and commit to cultivating them within yourself. And in this way, keeping the mind virtuous, we're generating an enthusiasm within ourselves, an enthusiasm for spiritual development, a recognition that all beings around us have many good qualities. And this then makes it so much less likely we'll look down on others and concentrate on the faults of others, but rather see the good qualities that others do have. Forsake gain and respect. At all times, relinquish your own renown.
Shangi donda nyebarayage sosole nyebarayage nyemba oda di puyege donda samta gyo mares denige rayage samta che nyamne chi gyo mares or samna dine ta gyo mares chesang jugi samlo nala dirwa chesang mi kushep cheyada kurtis mi kushep cheyada desuge rayage kushep chege rayage samta che dushine mi sosolya puye nyemba puyada 미유 소소를 90째 되니게 레와geb체 곰냠네 제하다 두 섬다나 지교 말디 지교 말에서 녀당 꿀티 방차 신세월.
Here we need to, again, using the mental factors mentioned earlier, be aware of our mind, guard our motivation, especially engaging in virtuous activities like we are here. Guard our motivation from gaining something from others or receiving respect from others. We need to guard ourselves against this because we have an inclination to want to be praised and thought of well, spoken about well. So certainly, or in particular, when engaging in our spiritual development, we must ensure that to the extent that we can, we keep our motivation pure of wanting to gain material benefit from others or to be respected or praised by others.
Nyembarayage social nyenguru puyege pugenji rayage donala samda je ngajugi gom nyamne je chamje deje nyamne jigyo baina dene kunoti sosugi wenera tarbada tamje kimba sanjo ko tobeyege samdan go margasne ko social ya buho nyembarayage disamda 제산디 먼저 총다지 바라 차르고 제산디 게지데 녀바 말아봐네 피게 말아봐네 갈레리스네 어디는 기부요 마다가 되네 진알 대한지 주마선 배 독자 야고 주마선 비 셈마기와 차야다 마오반 아다디 직 제마제민들 대한 가라민도스네 네 게줄 마두 얘기 냐요래 야수서 미 구셰브 얘기 도나 레와 첨부 잡지 구셰브 배 야고레다 미디게 검냐 시우직도 미 구셰브 얘기 도나 레와 잡지 samtawane mi gujeb majebena adadi chomiding edingala yatichu ngalu gujeb jigmindu sambiga samno taje sosuge de khonala da maobana dati je majminga gujeb jegen mindu nyemba teken mindu dene nyamne jigme asambe yuje nyinga yore je dene za di kunno dene jobane soso nyemba raya dona soso ya gujeb jega raya ge dona dene ge samtan ta kunno dene kye jenga joge gom nyamne jigiyoba chwe nyamne jigina chwe tata chago mardi jubne trebodi yakbo yung mare sere chisa da ngaro zo kunwa khare ko se denela sam mata a che ngaro ya kewa yana kewa chimal hada mi ko bon tobya ge yana tarbi ge ko bon tobya ana san yu ko bon tobya ngaro zo gi rangshen yu dunga tamche pa me ba soya da gewi jawa nyamnen tarchin ba yong ge donda du sam da de kewa nyamne kom nyamne che ko re jere.
If one engages in any kind of spiritual endeavor, such as entering retreat, with the hope to gain something from others, whether it's financial gain or to respect or reputation, if one engages in spiritual activities with that, how is it possible that one's spiritual endeavors will lead to liberation and enlightenment when one's mind is less on overcoming the fetters to samsara and more on gaining respect from others? In fact, one's spiritual endeavors will be no different from business. Rather, we need to take care of our mind, because if our motivation is so flawed, our spiritual endeavors will come to nothing. We will not spiritually develop, no matter how many retreats we engage in and how many retreats and so forth we engage in. And secondly, not only will we not spiritually develop, but or those whom do not show us the respect that we believe we are entitled to, we will get angry at them, we will look down on them. Our mind will just get ever more afflicted. So we need to take care of our mind, be aware of our motivation. The appropriate motivation is to be striving to achieve a good rebirth in our future lives, a rebirth as a human or as a god, and certainly to be striving to achieve the final goals of liberation and enlightenment. That is the appropriate motivation, not to have any hope to receive something from others or to gain respect or praise from others.
지수 차상 먼저 삼로 나를 당탄 시거로 와지단 아주 냠린 가래 제베나 삼로 나를 당부 군노데 산지고 방 토비치도 인사다 타바 토비치도 인 소수게 라신 둥아 바 세세 개위 냠린지데 탈친 바중에 돈다 인 삼제 군노데네 삼다제 만주게 냠린 제고레스 쉐제야다 냠린제 디제고레 마도 군노딜야 오당알레 디제네 냠바 망보라기레 아니 뭐 90제가 망보라기레 삼제 대기 라야게 돈달야 군노데네 삼다바이나 안 젤야 디기 냠바체겐나 90제게 메나 데네 코나랑그레 얘네 마오바나 디제야게 되발리기 말레스 제자도 디제마제 민우 돈다 두미도 sabia sam리게 제자 디군노데 노트르 제자 냠바라야 당 꿀디시 90제야게 군노라나 sabige 레와디니시게스 군노 케제 냠nen 제바이나 디군노데 노트르 디삼노 당겨 말레스 델레테네 삼노 디타바이나 냠만 곰냠네 야고용 투고 말에 디게 제보들라 아니 견주에다 강하다 망볼리기리 해제 지나다 군론 가르당 고래스나 샘자 탐지 상유고바 토비치도 쇼 토비치 인산배 삼다제 마주게 냠는 지하다 근데 탈바 토비 누가 탐지 빵아지 띵기 대화 토비치도 인산배 삼로 되니 다장 주기도 시네 냠는 지고래스 되니 제바이나 아니 미인고를 슈쿠샵지 해매바이나다 인고테 해매바이나다 샘냐 강알리 마레스 안디기 개와티야 야고시 용고래 제래
Rather, one should engage in virtuous activities such as receiving teachings, meditating on those teachings, with a motivation of attaining a good rebirth in future lives, so that one can continue one's spiritual development, and certainly a motivation of eventually achieving liberation from samsara and full and complete enlightenment. That should be the motivation for all of us sitting here, as well as for when we engage in all our endeavors. If one is thinking about getting something material from the world, or something transitory in the world, such as a material gift, or reputation, or praise, this is contrary to our spiritual goals, and actually our spiritual endeavors, or our so-called spiritual endeavors, will just bind us further to samsara. And they will bind us further to samsara because of what we're looking to achieve, which is just praise and reputation and so forth. And moreover, when we do not receive that, we'll get angry, we'll be disappointed at others, look down on others, get angry at them. And that too binds us further to samsara. In fact, engaging in spiritual activities such as going into retreat with such a motivation, not only does this prevent the desired outcome of liberation and enlightenment, this being achieved or one progressing towards that, but so many obstacles are created from such a tainted motivation, obstacles and problems within oneself. Rather, one should cultivate a sincere motivation that through my endeavors here, that creates the virtue that will lead to a good rebirth, so as I can continue my spiritual development and eventually attain liberation and enlightenment, so that I can be of great benefit to others. And if one has such a good motivation, one will receive praise and recognition from others, but whether one does or doesn't actually will be of no importance to one at all.
Cheda Tato Pongla Jera Chimboyage, some Dakio Mare, Sans Yamne, Shayam, Jera Raya, Jera Doyag, Jera Nyanda Chimbuchag, Dondala, Kuno Nyanda Chimbuchag, Nadijin, or some de Com Jabret, Yamlin Chigos, Jera Chimboraya, Kuno, Denigi, some Daje, some Tavane, Tikuno the notaries, Chesa Tikuno de Papango, remember, some Dakio Mare, or Cheda Tato Ponglas. China Chimbujaga, some Dakuno Dinishana, Jeda Mayobaina, Adadi. To get a dram some good Dunda Druminism, and the Usha in Iowa. Chesna Dim, didn't get a Chimborag, Dundala, Kuno, Dine, some Geocomnium Chide, Dine, and it Mount Zumashagi, Yanghachimbo, Oda, Jedachai, Dundalacom, Japangacom, Jawinda, Matopa Dinetopta, Natsutri Dinetia Yordasan, Zunshag in Yayor, then Zunshaban, Mishana Kohota, Dibachimo Rajan Nigala, Yora, so Ranang in Yamlenche, the Gaju Kartubina, so Gera Chai Dundala, to some Tankyo Mares, it's now so Sugita, Deji so Sugi. Tarbatoba, San Yoko Montoya Chidu, Sembe Shenle Pembe Chidu Yin, Sembe some Daji Kichu Bores, Gunodi Dicore, Gunodi, Shenle Pembe Chidu Yin, Tarbata Temji Kimbo to be Chidu Yin, Sembe Samlodi, Gunodi Gores, Mother, Nakara Chimbochada, Mabe Jera Chimbutamianda Chai, Donda in some J, some Dawa and the Gunodi notary, some Takio Mares or Matsunyam Chela.
And the same sentiment is expressed in the second line. At all times, relinquish your own renown. So here, we need to guard ourselves from seeking fame or prestige, wanting a good reputation, wanting to be thought well of by others. We need to guard against this, because this is very harmful. It's to the extent that we have such a tainted motivation, our spiritual development will be gravely impeded. And in fact, it can lead us to not only have our spiritual development impeded, but we can create far stronger, or we can create strong negativities too. Because wanting a great reputation, wanting to be held in a prestigious, be seen as someone of great renown, we may well lie to others about our qualities. We may exaggerate about what we have achieved. And there's a lot of harm that comes from this, not only in terms of our spiritual development and our store of negativity, but where we could have been of benefit to someone, should we have been a sincere person. Instead of being of benefit in those circumstances, we may end up being of harm. Moreover, having such a tainted outlook, we may well turn away from others, not wanting to have anything to do with certain people, because we don't feel they are giving us the recognition and the praise that we believe we are entitled to. And moreover, we may end up turning away from progressing, from engaging in our spiritual development, because this need for recognition is not being fulfilled. So we need to guard our motivation and ensure our motivation is one of having a sincere wish to achieve liberation and enlightenment in order to be of greatest benefit to others. Have modest desires, be easily satisfied, and reciprocate kindness.
chokshé kore, döchung chokshé kore. Chizan döba chimbochana, pene chala chiyena, mora chiyena, denik bazo, dile denesh kugudu, and dile yagar from odian denesh kugudu, yahan denesh dile yagar, o denesh kugudu, bigi deneki döba chimbochana, di duye dondalia, dene lagada, muyu sayada, pen sayagi dondalia, chilaga mangbolene, chuyamne jia kohorek mares. Chizan da döba chung se de, 최외 튕긴 직삼 지게다 디기 디그레스 다가 최냠는 제발라 다 되사다 사야다 디기 디그레스 삼백이 초셰 받고 그래서 되바 충충치 디기 디그레스 초셰 제고 그래 지산 되바 충충 다 초셰 제고 그래 마도 되바 첨보 되바 첨보 쉬고도 강바이 지그라바는 니숨라고도 아 되네야 제 중국의 캡상 디고도 매든 변조 가제라나 디고도 되발은 한쪽에 타요 말다 가제라나 되는 딜레 마고 그래서 배삼 리그레스 지산 되네 자다 되바 충충지안 초셰 제고 돼 냠는 제발라 다 사야 동야다 누로다 그듯이 디기 되는지 디그레스 비게 다 초셰 제고 그래서 지산 초셰 제바이나 최주에 냠는 고합 망하라 그래서 초셰 맞제바이나 안지 디두베게 된다라 야가 망고에 파서로 망고차도 최제야로 고합라고 말해서 지산 초셰 된 거래지.
Have modest desires, be easily satisfied. This is of great importance for a spiritual practitioner. Someone who is sincere about progressing spiritually, about developing themselves spiritually, should have modest desires and be easily satisfied. Because to the extent that one is not, one will not be content with what one has, and therefore will never be satisfied and always longing for more. If one has a new car, all too quickly one will be longing for a new car. When whatever one buys, one will soon want to replace it with something better. One's mind will not be content. Therefore one's mind will not be at ease. One will never be satisfied. Rather one will remain dissatisfied. Being dissatisfied, not being content, one's mind will be caught up in worldly activities, always thinking about what one desires, what more one needs. And such a way of thinking is very far from a mind that is focused on developing spiritually. So therefore it's of great importance for someone who's sincere about spiritual development to be content, to have modest desires, be easily satisfied.
chokshi chekore, dyoba chunga chokshi chekore sayadi, nganzo zowo dade sayadi, zowo nganzo nyamlen je tuken, nyamlen pa chwe nyamlen jikela sungore, chizan dyoba chenpo chaya tang, pe denu digire sanpe samlo me bayana, pe chokma she bayana, diyang hu sanpe liaga mangbo chino kom nyamlen chayala kokoprag mares, chizan da chokshi chekore sayadi, tsuyo yuji ki tungin digi sayore, tsuyo yuji ki tungin di dyoba chung chokshi chekore sayadi. 아, 또 롭정 연된 자야리야, 냠는 자야리야, 똑배 규례기야리야, 초시지겨. 다디는 디그레 다디에 고요 말씀에 삼다겨 말이 이야기 주고 말해. 제가 똑배 냠는 기야라 어디든지 초시 맞아 봐주면 된 가세 규례기나 게 어디 토선 다디양알 토고 선배 연된데 자야기 되고 그래서 제가 연된 냠는 게 똑배 규례기야라 초시지야요 말해서 진짜 초시제세디 최유지기 튕긴디게 초시제고래서 맞아 최유지기 튕긴을 초시 맞아봐는 디가냐 줍든 내가 망보차네 내가 저리야 최주게 곰냠을 잡고 약보라고 말해서 최지야는 뇌기리에서 그러다도 소소한도 냠렘발에 냠렘 제한디기를 숨고래디.
This advice is specifically for those who are serious about developing spiritually. They need to develop a content outlook, being satisfied with what they have as being sufficient. Because this gives one freedom of mind that is not caught up in ever more worldly desires, never being satisfied with what they have, but always needing more. The mind that's not at ease because it's discontent. However, such a spiritual practitioner, though, should not apply the attitude of having modest desires and being easily satisfied towards their spiritual attainments. As they spiritually develop, they shouldn't say, I'm done pretty well, I'm quite good just how I am. Now I can sit back, rest on my laurels. Not at all. They should recognize the greatness of their role models and see how much further development can still come, and to strive ever more, to use their freedom from worldly concern, to strive ever more in the development of spiritual qualities.
벤디고 다 질레제 바단 가와이나제 촉시시고 맨에 대중 촉시면은 소소게 변조가 가제요나 어느 디고도 섬 데네게 레갈레네데 코리 육순교로 네비게 직시고 진뇌야지 라신이가 뇌만에 섬마다와체 소소게 변조라야 되나 양양 섬다제 레갈레제네 코리 육순교로는 미망벌레야 지강아제야 지용고로와 아직 이렇게 하시는 소소 변조 야고요바나 데누 되바 마항아제 데누 디양알로 대신 디기도 선배 촉시에 매배 견기 고소 레송 전배지 미망 교보들 무이디 태도에다 차상 소소 고소 레송데 사되긴 마고 용고로와 디서 차상 대충 촉시에 매배기 촉시에 매배 견기 차고래 되바 첨보시 좀시 봐 인자 대충 촉시에 매 맞된 봐 인자 되네기 노트 용고 지다는 가족이 지기 kimbal이나 내가 가르쳐베네 대충 촉시 제베나 소소기 튕기나 소소 직섬 디그리 선배게 전에 한번 되는 고걸 봐야다 아니 지고소 레송 제야지 용 매바 차고로와 대충 촉시 된 바인다.
This advice, though, is certainly still appropriate for those who have to go to work every day and accumulate material resources for themselves and their family. What one needs to guard against is not falling into an extreme and saying, I can live without anything, therefore I can apply myself at all times to spiritual development. One needs favorable circumstances. One needs to have a minimum of suitable circumstances or material goods in order to be able to spiritually develop. However, one must guard one's mind from being dominated by the desire for more. To the extent that one is dominated by the need for ever more, greed will overtake oneself. And a person, to the extent that greed dominates a person, that person will take advantage of others because that person doesn't value others. They will only see others as being as important as they can be of benefit to themselves. If someone can only be of limited benefit to themselves or no benefit at all, that person will not be valued. A person, to the extent that the mind is dominated by greed, they'll struggle to develop close relationships with others because their own self-interest will be so dominant because they do not have the mental space to spiritually develop. They have no contentment. They'll struggle to have any relationships that are beneficial with others because they are focused on fulfilling their own desires first and foremost. So therefore, developing a content outlook, having modest desires and be easily satisfied, is appropriate advice for all spiritual practitioners, whether one is ordained or whether one has a family.
다디네 자당 저기 디링 셰기 롭센디 당아 저 가르 삼당 고리람나 당아 저기 셈을 봤다시 제시 맞 셈이야 삼을 간듯이 코고도 삼을 셴베 뇌바 삼바지 코고데 셴려야 펜베 삼을 코고도 삼을야 또 셴 삼나나 가레 삼도 또 제바제 나 내내가 저기 셴라 뇌베 삼을 코바이나 델라 때네 류가 저바 간듯이 용고도 디기 셴려야 펜구데 뇌구도 또 제바제 다 소소라 삼나야 셴레 펜베 삼바단 잠지게 삼나 시바나 디기 류가 줘바 가리 튕기도 디기 셴레야 펜그 가리스 펜기도 가리스 뇌기도 다 라나 가리스 펜기도 뇌기도 도 지나가 저기 심주 제제 도세 삼당 도신 제바제도 되네제네 다 되네자 다 류가 삼로들야 셴레 뇌베 삼로 코야다 뇌베 삼로 코바나 디기 다 류가 줘바데 야고시리기 민도 디 말레바나 샬레 누구도 디 이견자 라라 누구도 라신이가라 내갑들라 라신이가라 뇌바 디네 가서 개외 섬다디 데니기 랭아 바사 디게 마오바네 데보데 양아서 두샤야 냥아도 지산 디체네 자오이네 디민도 선배 섬다 단 잠지게 섬다도 샬레 판배 섬다다 샬레 닝지게 섬바 섬다 바이나 안에 가르치 무슨네 용아의 줘바 간에서 용구도 디리 샬레 팽기도와 이제 라라 팽기도 두제들 다 샬레 팽기요 바다 라라 팽기요 통요도 어디 삼로디 기디나 가슴나 장고야 냐고에 디레샤 삼비 삼다제 안가 두 제바제데 다 셈레 제바제데 제치무 슈레 지상가도 류나가 줘바디 셈기 제소 장 리고래 뭐라 땅을 마선에 셈디리 지상 셈디 야고 줘바이나 그 류나가 줘바데 야고 영향 바래 셈데 야고 마선에 류나가 줘바데 야고 영향 바래 지상 디네자 做 셈레야 베지 땅 셈레 두신 삼다 두 지는 가서 삼나 다제네 안소 삼나 나래야 오다 기디네 샬레 뇌베 자와세디 류가 유스미오 샬레 뇌베 자와 사와긴 지금이야 삼베게 삼로디 디야네 야도 따바이네 아니 기디네 셈레야 야네 야도 따바네 기디네 셈레 야세 제용 거래 셈레야 샬레 뇌베 자와 지금이야 셈레 야세 제바이나 류가 줘바디 샬레 뇌베 자와 정아 리고 말와 디나시 다 샬레 펜베 자와 류가 유스미오 샬레 펜베 자와디 지기야 삼베게 샬 랑리 대화 고바나 샬레 대화 고고래 샬 랑 동아 미고 샬레 동아 고고요 말 나서 차단 찍바르 치다 샬 삼제 탐제 대화 주 요나 빼야 고려 선배게 삼다 샬이야 대화 요야다 동아 세야리야 이 펜백강도 또 지긴 선배게 도 진의 삼다만 디 삼로데 야네 야도 다웨네 땅한서 삼로데 아니 기디나 딜레어도 삼로 숙체셔 주고 제가 내게 삼로도 숙체 체도 한도 류하게 줘버디에 샬리야 펜베 자와도 줍두고 대중에도 라라에 샬레 펜바 라라에 봐봐 라신이가 내가 삼다만 체딜 삼다 라신이가 펜바 용고래 제가 디기다 개와 치마 삼다베나 아주 개와 치마 되네게 삼 샬야 뇌바 지금에 선배 삼로트다 샬야 판도 주긴 선배 삼로 딩일라 때네 레 삼보사 개와 치매나 하다 미고 봐토야 안 땡델레네 아직 야고 차야 차고래 안다 아주야 타바다 탐지기 미고 봐토야 삼다네 되네 삼로디야 니보 숙처셔 또 봐나 땅내 탈바 탐지기 먹고 토고 그래. 지상 가지 뉴베시 추원은 사유고 봐토야야 다 년주고 그래. 지상 디네 자당 디링 아주 삼다디 또 진 수수의 셈리야 다시체 셈 남버리티 게마주와지 기중매 셈의 삼다야다 상비리티 기티나 기지긴 디 상비리티 안에 양도 삼다야디 당한 중에 디링기 다 조지기 코롱게 냠len 제 냠용 토네 가서 송샤바디 오 경화도 되는 제고에서 랍든 제바디 조지 가서 랍든 제바이 삼제 디링이 조지 까나바디 이 냠len 지기 사비 메바치 장도 두스네 안 제나 안 제고야디 디링이 달롭선디게 디레 안 되는 마나 상이든 마무디시 마셔야지 되는 마무디시 쉬야지
There's just one thing that you've got from our two talks today, then I hope that it's the great importance that our mind plays, the great importance, that it is greatly important that we all take care of our own minds. We take care of our own minds by guarding against harmful thoughts, take care of our own mind by ensuring that our way of thinking stays virtuous. And the reason that this is so important is just like a car. If we liken a car to our body and speech, the car will only go where the driver directs it. Whether it goes straight, left or right is dependent on the intention of the driver. Likewise, our body and speech goes in the direction that the mind directs it. Whether it's going to be helpful or harmful, virtuous or non-virtuous, depends on the motivating mind. So when we recognize that our behavior and our speech follows from thought, it's then that we'll recognize the great importance of our mind. Whether we are acting in ways that help or harm ourselves, help or harm others, depends on our mind. So here, we need to use analysis, engage in analytical meditation, thinking about certain attitudes or ways of thinking and identifying whether they are wholesome or virtuous or unwholesome or non-virtuous. We can see this in terms of when a particular mind arises, on one hand it may be a mind of love, on another it may be a mind of anger. How does it make us feel mentally? What kind of speech follows when influenced by this mind? What kind of physical behavior follows from this mind? What is the impact it has on others? So in this way, through analyzing again and again, we can start to recognize for ourselves, based on our own experience, not just what we've been told, which that minds such as love and compassion are wholesome, minds such as anger and attachment are unwholesome. And recognizing this, seeing the benefits of having wholesome minds manifest, and the faults and the danger that follows from having afflicted minds manifest, we then will be more encouraged to utilize the mental factors of contentment, vigilance, and mindfulness to at all times, certainly in meditation, but also when not in meditation, to take care of our mind, to make sure that the way we're relating to others is with a mind of love, compassion, and wisdom, rather than minds that are of the afflicted side. And then moreover, we also looked at today about the importance of recognizing the good qualities in others, rejoicing in the good qualities of others, rejoicing in our own spiritual endeavors, and utilizing this to generate strength of mind within us, to persevere in our spiritual development, to reprioritize what we value, what we see as important. In other words, where we spend our time and our energy. And coupled with this, there was encouragement today to rather concentrate on the good qualities of others, rather than dwelling on their faults. When we observe faults in others, rather turn our mind to their good qualities, remind ourselves of their good qualities. And in this way, we guard our mind from ruminating about the faults of others, and similarly, don't allow our mind to ruminate on the faults that we have done in the past. Recognize them, commit to changing in the future, and let our past mistakes go. What we're trying to do here is turn our mind in a positive direction. A positive direction that is in accordance with reality. turn our mind in a positive direction, and generate strength of mind. This makes it much easier to transform ourselves and thereby to be of ever more benefit to others. And to the extent that we keep our mind wholesome, then our spiritual goals of liberation and enlightenment, these come ever closer. And we'll come to recognize that what may just seem as a theory now is truly possible as we see ourselves spiritually developing over time. So lastly, we also mentioned that Lama Atisha was the author of this text. We can recognize on his tremendous good qualities, and it was his tremendous good qualities that enabled him to write a text such as this based on his own experience, how he lived his life. And he was a living example to all those fortunate enough to be his direct students. And this text is based on advice given to them. Generate the aspiration to develop these self-same good qualities that we've covered briefly thus far, and we'll cover again again from tomorrow. So thank you very much.